Hello guys and welcome back to another video. Are y'all excited? Because today we're talking about Sega, and boy do I have a video for you. Did you think big companies like Sega could ever do anything wrong? Well, for Sega that is not true. In fact, their actions almost landed them in big trouble, or possibly out of business. All that and more in this video, but let's start with their humble beginnings in Hawaii. The company we know as Sega would get its start from Irving Bromberg. Irving had two companies, Irving Bromberg Co. and Standard Games. Standard Games sold arcade games, jukeboxes, and vending machines and is often confused for being part of Sega's beginning. Technically, this company had nothing to do with Sega, but Irving acquired experience at these two companies that translated into his endeavors at Service Games, formed in 1946. Irving led Service Games with his son Marty Bromberg and a family friend James L. Hubert. Service Games distributed coin-operated equipment and slot machines to military bases in Hawaii during the early days of World War II. These slot machines helped to aid increasing demand for entertainment on U.S. military bases, thus providing a unique niche market for Service Games to cash in on. In 1951, the Transportation of Gambling Devices Act was passed. This prohibited gambling devices on U.S. military bases and its territories, but technically Service Games could still sell to military bases outside of U.S. territories, and that they did. Service Games began retargeting their business to markets in the East, but this is where things start to get a little icky. Before I go on, I would like to note that Sega's beginnings are quite hard to nail down as there are many contradicting sources online, but this is what I could make out by cross-referencing details from a few different sources. In May 1960, Service Games was liquidated, and it has been said that Service Games performed many sketchy and illegal business practices while overseas. Just a few of the allegations include bribery, tax evasion, theft, coercion, illegal imported goods, violations of customs, and assault with a deadly weapon. It was even said that the IRS found over 100 incidences of misdealings. It is not clear if these allegations are true, as Service Games was never held liable for any of these. However, one fact is true. The liquidation led to the start of Nihon Kiko Saizo and Nihon Garaku Busan, which Sega claims to be the official start of their company. These two companies bought the remaining assets of Service Games and continued doing business. Nihon Goraku Busan began producing jukeboxes, which the company introduced to the Japanese markets. This popularized jukeboxes in Japan and led to the development of the Sega 1000, Japan's first domestically produced jukebox. Also, fun fact, Sega came from the first two letters of Service and Games. Later in 1964, Nihon Goraku Busan and Nihon Kikai Saizo merged, and in 1965, another company, Rosen Enterprises, merged with Nihon Goraku Busan as well. It was this year that the company was rebranded as Sega. The next year, Sega released its first electromechanical arcade game, Periscope. In this game, the player is tasked with using a periscope to aim at and destroy submarines. This game managed to propel Sega into competition with other big players. However, Periscope is very similar to another arcade game produced by Namco. This led to a bit of confusion regarding who came up with the submarine genre first. But let's get into something a little more interesting.
Largest franchisee of Pizza Time Theater Incorporated is proud to present the magic of the Pizza Time Players, starring Mr. Munch, Jasper T. Jowls, Harmony Howlett, Pasquale the singing chef, and of course the star of our show, Chuck E. Cheese. Come on along and see what all the excitement's about.
At this time, Chuck E. Cheese was starting to see their rise, and this piqued Sega's interest. This led to the establishment of PJ Pizzazz to compete with Chuck E. Cheese's. Yes, Sega made their own pizza complex. Can you believe that? Its first location opened in West Covina, California in June of 1980. The pizza complex featured activities such as lunar bounce for the little ones and a lounge with video games and drinks for the adults. And of course, any pizza complex would not be complete without depth-seeking animatronics. Okay, sorry, a little exaggeration. There were not any Freddy Fazbear animatronics here, but there was PJ. PJ was a robotic mascot that held the responsibility of mingling with guests and emceeing birthday parties. In the year of 1979, Sega Enterprises released another arcade game, Head On. In this game, the player controls a white car and drives around 5 different tracks to, get this, collect dots and increase their score, all the while their opponents are trying to crash head-on into the player. Head-On was a major success as many people enjoyed this style of game. A year later, the arcade game Pac-Man was released, in which the player was tasked to eat dots as well. I'm sure you all see where this is going. But let's just say that Sega makes it very clear that they were the creators of the original Dot Eater game. In June of 1983, Sega released its first home console, the SG-1000, a nice reference back to their jukebox era. But unlike the Sega 1000, the SG-1000 did not do as well on the market. The SG-1000 unfortunately came out around the same time as the Famicom, one of Nintendo's home consoles. And sadly, the SG-1000 couldn't hold a candle to the Famicom. It was my understanding that the SG-1000 had a few questionable design decisions that ultimately spelled doom for the system. Sega abandoned the system 2 years later. In 1985, the racing arcade game Hang On was released, and it came with the added effect of authenticity. The game was designed to simulate the feeling of driving a motorcycle by allowing the player to lean in the direction of their choosing. In fact, the game's developer, Yu Suzuki, took inspiration from the motorcycle racer Freddie Spencer to construct the game. The extra effort only helped the game to perform. The game did exceedingly well, leading to other racing arcade games released by Sega, such as Virtua Racing. Virtua Racing helped to popularize 3D polygon graphics in the gaming market. By this time, the only other competitor with this technology was Bandai Namco. Despite this, Virtua Racing was a staple for Sega and brought them a major win. The R360. It's the first ever 360-degree spinning arcade machine, according to Sega. The game came with features to ensure that the player was never left in a downward position. Despite the R360 being 5 times the price of your average arcade game, it apparently still did well against its competitors. Now, my first thought was, how great is this game for players to want to be spun in 360 degrees? And upon watching how it is played, I realize it's more for the experience. The player is practically put into the front seat of a jet fighter aircraft, and the rotation works to simulate that experience. I would definitely try out this game, but just not on a full stomach. Now, it is time to get into the home console era of Sega. If you have been keeping up with Sega, you immediately know where this is going, so let's get right into it. Last we left off was the SG-1000, which didn't really do that well compared to its competitor, the Famicom. So Sega scrapped the SG-1000 and later released the Master System, or the Mark III, in 1987. The Master System also did not outperform its rival, which was still the Famicom at the time, but it did well in Europe and South America. In fact, because of the sales in these areas, the Master System became the second best-selling console produced by Sega. And what would be better to follow up the Master System than the Mega Drive, aka the Sega Genesis? Yes, the system that many of you probably hold dear to your hearts, and rightfully so. Released in 1989 in America, the system was a major success. And in 1991, the system became even bigger of a hit with the debut of Sonic the Hedgehog. Sidetracking for just a little here, Sonic was created with the intent to make a splash in the industry and oppose Nintendo's mascot, Mario, who was taking the industry by storm. and boy did Sonic make a splash. With Sonic's debut, Sega sold about 15 million Genesis units. Also, I had to point out that Sonic and Mario are featured in the Olympic Games franchise together despite Sonic originally being created to oppose Mario. I just think that it's ironic, but I digress. Getting back on track, the Genesis brought much success, but not for too much longer. The next home console that Sega released was the Sega Saturn. The Saturn was Sega's best-selling console in Japan, but in America, it was a major flop. And you might be asking why. Well, the answer is simple: competition. The Sega Saturn just did not meet the demands of the public in America, and of course, Nintendo's N64 was in favor. And by this time, Sony had also stepped into the arena with the PlayStation. So unfortunately, Sega's console kinda got pushed to the back burner, so to speak. This would be seen again with the Dreamcast. Sega decided to pull a Hail Mary with this console. Sega designed the Dreamcast to surpass the technology of both the PlayStation and the N64. Additionally, Sega released the Dreamcast several months before its competitors in an attempt to recapture the market. Despite these efforts, the console was not able to gain enough traction. In 2001, the Dreamcast was discontinued and Sega withdrew from the console industry. 1996 marks the beginning of the theme park era for Sega with the launch of Joypalace Park in Tokyo. Joypalace is an indoor theme park with rides, games, and more. At Joypalace, you can play zero latency VR and try to survive a zombie arena. Or maybe check out the Attack on Titan attraction. I'm sure you've always wondered what it's like to have your existence threatened by a giant titan. Joypalace also has a 360-degree ride based on the movie Transformers. But if you need a break from all that adrenaline, you can see in Joypalace, which is a virtual performance. Or grab something to drink or a bite to eat at the lounge. Sega also opened other amusement centers under the branding High-Tech Land. This was Sega's first arcade chain. But these arcades quickly began to phase out about 10 years later as some of them started shutting down or being renovated as other amusement attractions. Some of the arcades were made into Club Segas, and one of Sega's most notable Club Segas was located in Akihabara, Japan. But come to find out, Bandai Namco moved into this location shortly after it closed. I did a little investigating and I found that Namco reported a profit of 6,038 million yen the opening year of their new arcade in Akihabara. In 1997, Sega started seeking out mergers and initially sought to merge with Bandai, but this deal eventually fell through. It wouldn't be until 2004 that Sega closes a deal with Sammy, officially becoming Sega Sammy. Sega Sammy also branched out into the toy industry by establishing Sega Yonezawa Co., now currently named Sega Toys. Do you remember this? This is the iDog, and as the name suggests, it was a popular toy and accessory that was designed to be used alongside the iPod. It glows and dances when music is played. It even mimics the sounds and movements of a dog. It was produced in America through Hasbro, but the original producers of the toy was Sega Toys. This toy sold well in America and overseas. In 2014, the Atlas Group joined Sega Sammy. The Atlas Group is the same group that brought us the Persona franchise. Another game by Sega Sammy that I would like to check out is Phantasy Star Online 2. It looks pretty interesting. I believe it's free for PC, so why not check it out? Maybe I will stream it on my Twitch channel. Now, did you know that Sega Sammy is in the anime business as well? Well, theoretically speaking, that is. Actually, Sega Sammy became the parent company of TMS Entertainment, who produced anime such as Fruits Basket and Baki. TMS Entertainment has even helped work on a few episodes of Western works as well, such as Spider-Man the Animated Series, Batman the Animated Series, and the Animaniacs. Let's just say doing business with TMS is definitely a smart idea, and Sega Sammy knew this. So alongside the works that TMS normally produces, you may occasionally see figurines and other content created that are based on the shows released by TMS Entertainment, such as Lupin the First, a CGI animated movie based on the anime Lupin the Third. Sega also opened a chain of taiyaki shops called Sega no Taiyaki. As much as I would like to go, unfortunately these shops has been closed. So I can only dream for now as we are coming to the end of our video. I really hope you all enjoyed it and let me know what you didn't know about Sega or what else you might want to know about another topic. But this is goodbye for now. See you guys later. Bye.